I had a tough childhood. I only got married out of necessity, but because of Jesus, now my life makes sense. This is the story of my life. I grew up in a home with 2 brothers and 3 sisters. Mom and dad. My mom and dad were married, but they fought a lot. They were separated a lot. My dad used to physically abuse my mom, and those are some of the memories I have growing up. When I was about 8 years old, I believe my mom was taking a bath, and they got into an argument. My dad came in and tried to drown her in the bathtub. So those were some of my memories. I never really had much supervision when I was a kid. So when I got into my early teens, I started to get into a lot of trouble. Started hanging out with the wrong crowd, started stealing things. I would go to the convenience store right up the road from my house, and I would steal packs of gum. Then I would take them to school and sell them. And when I was 15 years old, me and a buddy were walking by a motorcycle shop, and right out in front of the motorcycle shop there was a go-kart out there, a really nice go-kart, and we decided that we were going to steal it. So we ended up riding this go-kart about a half mile from where we stole it from, and we ended up getting caught. We both confessed to it. I got a small fine and 6 months probation. And there was also talk about me having to go to a juvenile detention home, which I knew I wanted no part of. So I just figured that I needed to straighten out my life. And I had started dating a girl. We had dated for probably about 5 years. We were dating pretty seriously. That was when I was probably 17 years old, and we probably broke that off when I was around 20, 21, 22 years old. And I never really would go out much, but after we broke up, I started hanging out with my buddies a lot more. We started going to nightclubs, bars, things like that. Started to get into drinking a little bit, and made some bad choices from that. I had met Michelle in, I believe, the fall of 1989, and we started getting pretty serious. And, we started dating, I think, September of '89, and I remember in February of 1990, Michelle coming to me and telling me that she thought she was pregnant. Well, my first response to this was, there's no way I'm ready to be a dad right now, so we need to figure out what we're going to do. So we talked a little bit about it, and I had brought up the fact of maybe her getting an abortion. And I regret that I ever said that, but I did. And her immediate response was, no way would I do that. So she said that if she had to, she would move to Youngstown with her dad, and that she would raise the child by herself. Well, when she said that, it made me think about my dad and what my dad would have done, and I wanted no part of that because I wanted to be totally opposite of the way my dad was. So I knew that I needed to be a man and accept the responsibility of getting her pregnant. And so I ended up asking her to marry me. We got married in May of 1990. The first few years of our marriage were pretty difficult because we were still pretty young. Plus we didn't have Jesus in our life, and so that affected our marriage. Now this is the story of my life meeting Jesus. The place Michelle worked at, most of the people that she worked with went to church, so they would invite her to go to church a lot. So we started talking, or mainly Michelle started talking about wanting to go to church. For me, Sundays was always a day that I was either playing sports or watching sports. So that was my day. Sports back then to me was my God. Plus her boss was friends with a guy that would come in periodically, and he was a Christian man, and he would always come in and talk to Michelle about her relationship with God. And he would always ask Michelle about my relationship with God and how I was doing. And one day Michelle called me out of the blue. I had actually called off work that day, and which is very rare for me because it's very rare that I call off work. And she asked if this guy would be able to come talk to me. He wanted to talk to me about God. And I was hesitant at first, but I thought, you know, what can it hurt? So I said, yeah, he can come over and talk to me about God. So he came over to my house, and long story short, he ended up leading me to the Lord. And my life didn't change right away after accepting Christ as my Savior, but I started thinking about it a lot more, and knew that I needed to make some changes in my life. The story of my life now that I have Jesus has changed my way of thinking. So there was a lady that Michelle worked with that invited her to come to church here with her, and Michelle said that she would, and so Michelle would come home and tell me, how much she liked it, and so I decided that I would start going with her. Now, the only problem was I still played football on Sunday mornings, so we would always get here late. We would miss the worship, which is a very important part of church, and we would, once the invitation at the end of the service would come on, we would get up and we would leave so I could get to church, to my football game on time. And so that year after football ended, I decided that I need to take my walk with Christ more seriously, and I needed to be the husband and the father that God called me to be. So I started coming to church with her. We would show up on time. We would come to the worship. We would stick around afterwards and talk to people. We met a lot of great people. And probably within a year of us coming to church on a regular basis, we were asked to get involved in ministry. So we had prayed about what we wanted to do, and my thought was to get involved with like kids ministry, like 5, 6, 7-year-old kids, because I felt like there wouldn't be any questions that they could ask me that I wouldn't be able to answer. I felt like I would still be smarter than them, which is debatable. But Michelle wanted to get involved in high school ministry. So we prayed about it, and that's where God called us into high school ministry. And I can tell you that out of the decisions I've made in my life, that's one of the best decisions I've ever made. And it's been a true blessing for us because we've got to know a lot of students throughout the year. We've met a lot of great people that we've served with throughout the years. We've been a part of some amazing mission trips. And we've also been able to share our story with kids that may have had difficult situations growing up in their life. Now, having Jesus in my life doesn't make my life perfect, but it does make it easier because I can rely on God when I go through difficult situations. But I also can rely on my church family, and it's important to be a part of a church family because you have somebody that can pray for you, that can encourage you and to build you up when you are struggling. Because of Jesus, this is the story of my life.